Luigi, I, I have no words, but he is a stunning gentleman. And did you see that women, I read an article about the things that women write to him and stuff like that. He's stunning.
I've also declared war on potholes, so here's the first shot across the bow.
Well, as you know, with Planet Albany, there's always something that makes the planet turn.
And it's this amazing view of D.C., and Eddie Vedder comes out. And he goes, "You have a cigarette?" And I've never smoked in my life, but if I had, I wish that was the moment.
And this strategy takes us from potholes to knotholes.
I would like to say it was a pleasure, Mr. Kim. But I'm on the road.
I'm David Lombardo, and this is Dispatches from Planet Albany, a WCNY podcast about power and politics, although this week's episode is mostly about sitting around and waiting, and we'll check in with Assemblymember Emily Gallagher, a Brooklyn Democrat, to find out what she does during this limbo or purgatory period of the state budget process as legislative leaders meet to hammer out some of the big-ticket items, and rank-and-file lawmakers wait to be briefed on what is being discussed and eventually vote on budget bills. But first, we'll check in with Shontell Smith, head of the New York State practice for Tusk Strategies, where she is a partner. So I want to start with some news out of the national front and kind of how it relates to maybe your own experience here, but definitely my experience at the Capitol. And that has to do with the Signal group chat, where a reporter was looped in. And I don't know if you've ever had that experience as someone who worked in government, but literally in the immediate aftermath of that, a state senator and their aide looped me in on a group text message about an event they were trying to do that day. I get emails from time to time where I'm added to threads just because of the name David or something else. And I wonder if that's something you ever were worried about. No?
A couple things. I was never invited into group chats that people didn't want me in because my name's unique. Mm-hmm. It's not like I got like a common name like John or Amanda. I have a black name. I have a blackety black name. So no one's added me to group chats unintentionally. I do have the thing where I'm talking shit about someone and accidentally text them instead of
Dave really sucks, except that you texted Dave about it.
Yeah, I hate that loser on that podcast, and then I'm texting you. I've done that once or twice.
Never to me, though.
No. I mean, I would just tell you you're a loser to your face. I mean, you're not, And then, there used to be a group chat that a large amount of people were on. I don't know how to say this, but the people who know will know. There was a large chat when I used to work in government, and then I was taking me off. I took myself off. I removed myself.
Because?
Every day people had thoughts and I didn't want to see the thoughts. I was denied. Okay, I will tell. So they had a chief of staff chat for the chief of staffs in the Senate.
Still exists.
And it was all the chief of staffs and the members. And I got added and I was all right. Then they kicked me out. Because it was basically they thought I was red state watching them, probably when they were talking shit about me or the leader or whatever thing that was blocking their member from getting bills. So I got kicked out and I was so offended. And then I knew, and I remember one of my friends was one of the organizers. And I was oh, you guys want to kick me out? I'll remember. Never forgot. I know the person who kicked me out. And then they were well, but she can't be in it. She's technically, I was a chief of staff.
But they felt you were central staff.
Yeah, they thought I was watching them probably when they were the leader took my bill off the agenda and they thought I was watching and taking notes. I didn't need to be in the chat to take notes.
The Upstate Assembly Dems have a text message group where they share all their thoughts and feelings. And there's some concern among some of them that there are people in there who report back to Carl.
I mean, I think in all chats, people are reporting back to people. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't trust anybody in politics with my chats.
Don't. Not a good move.
I have learned from working here, people smile in your face and backstab you any chance they get.
sticking with receipts, and this is kind of a long way to get to the idea of when the budget's going to be done. Right now, I'm gonna do this for you. Yep, yeah. I did some digging for you. And right now, there's a lot of discussion around when the budget's going to get done. Obviously,
Tell Big Mama what she wants to hear.
I'll get there.
Stop
I'll get there.
bullshitting.
I'll get there.
I can tell by your face. I can tell by your face. I was right.
And to be clear, I did a lot of homework just to make you sound good and to let you have this victory lap. So back in January, this is how far back this goes. You and I were talking, and I'll play the audio in the podcast, but technology prevents me from playing it right now. But you and I were talking in January about when the budget would be done. And my guess at that point, more than 2 months ago, was that it'll be done on April 11th, right in advance of Passover.
Of April. Finish out that week of that session, send it home so that they can actually take the scheduled time off as well, because then they have 2 weeks off.
You're out of your mind. If I had to say, I think Carl Hastie and the leader are going to tell their members to go home on the 9th. I'm going to go with, you vote on the 21st.
So that's over the Easter weekend.
Oh, wait. Oh, that's Easter?
20th is Easter, according to the Google Calendar.
Yeah, they come back after Easter, so.
So that means they're going to have an extender.
Oh, there's going to have to be an extender no matter what.
A significant extender.
On the 9th, they'll vote on a 2-week extender, but they'll be done before that 2-week extender.
So would you like to do any sort of victory lap?
No, I'm a humble woman from humble beginnings, as we discussed yesterday. I'm a humble woman. But y'all stop playing with me like I don't know what I know. Oh, yeah, this is going to be an easy budget. Yeah. Don't. Please. I think the speaker always says this. It's like whenever you start talking about policy, it's not an easy budget. So when you off the rip, start off budget talking about, I want to change discovery laws. I want to do involuntary commitment. I want to change the laws to that. We got to figure out this whatever $1 billion hole. Oh, Trump's up in the federal government making random slashes every other day. When was the last time we had a March 31st budget?
Sounds like an Andrew Cuomo budget.
And in order to have, I just want to be clear, in order to have an April 7th or 8th budget, you need a conceptual agreement.
Oh, yeah. That's not possible.
By March 30th, 31st. Because what people don't know is the behind the scenes. This is how I know when we're shutting down a budget. Even when they say there's a conceptual agreement, they're not shutting down the budget. That means there's an agreement between the leaders and they got to sell it to their conferences.
And put
sometimes
those final
that sticks.
I's and T's on it.
Sometimes that sticks. Sometimes that doesn't. But you know what conceptual agreement means to Shontell? The 4 or 5 things the governor wants, they have an agreement on, and the money they have an agreement on. But you know what there's usually not an agreement on? The 200 and something policy things that are in the executive budget that people refuse to negotiate while they're trying to figure out the 4 or 5 main policy things. So then what you have after this conceptual agreement is a freaking marathon of just trying to close down things. They haven't even started closing down the things they all agree on. We don't have a conceptual agreement. We haven't closed down all the other policy things. Oh, and by the way, to pull together these budget bills take about 3 days. And that's what people don't talk about. The budget is a monster. So no, I didn't think, I remember, George Clooney, Wayne Lair was all, I think they're going home the 8th. Wrong, buddy. Wrong. Because, and I said all of this,
I don't want to rain too much on your parade, though, because right now you are talking about the policy problems, and I'll play this audio too, but in January, what you said was...
Controversial. I think this is a money budget.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think there'll be policy issues. There'll be a lot of fights about how much money is spent and if the economy and groceries are the number one thing, and how are they going to fill that gap for the MTA? These are the things, yes, it's a boring budget.
Well, wait, whoa. Hold on. Okay, let's go there. Snappy pants. Let's go there. The issue I can't help it that we had a prison strike, and now prison language is being dropped on the floor, dropped on the table. And they want
Masks,
to
involuntary,
mass, involuntary,
cell phones.
all
That
this.
sounds like policy to me. That sounds like policy.
Guess what? I'm right. I don't care what you want.
You're
to
right
say.
about the date. You are 100%
I'm
right about the date.
the date. And last time I checked, did they figure out the money stuff?
That's
No.
true.
So guess what? I'm still right. I'm trying not to curse for the new year. Like, Dave, don't take me there, please.
Well, I want to come back to something you pointed out, though, about the pieces of the budget falling into place. And obviously, the governor is cooking up new things even after March 31st.
She went grocery shopping. She got some eggs. She got some steaks. She's like, you know what? Oh, cooking. I heard she dropped something like the other day, Friday. It was like, here's new language. Boo. This is the thing I don't like. Don't call me over and tell me you want to like go out with me, but you're like, the thing I don't like about what is always done during the budget is the lack of honesty.
Lack of honesty in Albany?
It's a lack of honesty.
Disingenuous politicians?
Just you sit there and pull me to the side and you rock me to sleep. I really want an on-time budget. Blah, 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 blah. Or let's get this done. And then you drop a new language.
Mm-hmm.
And then as a staffer, because let me just clear this up for everybody. So someone says they're dropping new language. So it's usually after the one houses, the only person that's dropping new language, let's be very clear about it, 9 times out of 10 is the governor.
Right.
So she's dropping new policy ideas that no one has even thought about or talked about. She drops this. You're a staffer already engaged in 3 ways. You have to do those 3 ways, debrief, and then, oh, there's new language now that you have to learn, research, get conference position on, advocate position on, and then discuss with the conference, figure out what the conference position is, and go to war. So there's no way you can say, I want to close down the budget, and you keep dropping new things because that's going to add 2 to 3 days.
Yep.
Like the Senate, we were a small conference. We had like 40 something members, but like the speaker has like 100 and something. It doesn't like, you know how long their conferences must be getting 100 and something different opinions?
Well, that's what we talk about later in the show with Emily Gallagher. Everybody gets 3 minutes and they go round and round.
It's like conference is torture. Imagine you're a man. Well, sorry.
I try. So some days I cosplay as one.
But imagine being a staffer and you basically haven't slept since like March 9th. And you're listening for hours, members expressing how they feel, because their feelings are valid because they do represent a constituency.
Yeah.
But you're listening to these members go on about whatever policy. Then after, you have to go whatever leadership the circle that determines what they're going to do. Then you have to fight either in Fight Club. And Fight Club is when it's game time and you got to close down the budget. And they're like, okay, instead of having 3 ways where the staff try to figure it out, do the 3-way conversation in front of senior staff for the governor, assembly, and Senate. I nicknamed it Fight Club because they were just basically like beating the shit out of each other, like trying to like show why one should take someone's position. And then the senior staff would be like, okay, how about we try this? And we would try to figure out or come up with different like compromises. This budget process is so inhumane. And it really brings out the worst of people because they're lacking sleep, they're lacking food, they're not having physical touch. It's just a very bad time for people. And the fact that like basically based on this creation of the budget, they're going into like late April, like I would lose my shit. I've had many breakdowns during budget. Like anyone that worked 2019, I literally had a mental breakdown 2019 because I thought the budget was going to be late and the members weren't going to get their pay grades. And I cried for 4 hours. It was so bad. Alfonso and Melissa had to come upstairs and like get me, like the leader was trying to stop, like, because you're just so mentally exhausted from budget. So I feel bad for anybody, but I can't buy them any food or anything because there's a ban. So sorry, guys.
Coming back to that idea, though, of inserting something into the budget at this point, is there anything that legislators or outside interests who aren't the governor or don't have the governor's ear can do to inject something into the conversation post March 31st? Or are all those people on the outside looking in? And what does that mean for someone like yourself who might say, we've got clients chirping in my ears, they want to get something in. Do you have to tell them, sorry, them's the breaks?
My clients, I set expectations. You want something in the budget. We're not waiting till January. We're doing pre-work before the actual budget drops. If I sign you after January, we're trying to get things in the one house. If someone came to me today and was like, oh, can you get this in the budget? I'd be like, does it cost anything or impact the state? If they say no, I'm like, why are we trying in the budget? Let's just go end the session. It's hard, especially if it's something that costs money. After the one house is done, you just really, it's not on the table. It's not a reality. It's really not. Unless it's a counter to something that's being discussed. But if it's just a brand new thing, the only person 9 times out of 10 that brings new items after the one houses is the executive. It's like, oops, oopsie daisy, here I just stumbled on correction reforms. Like, oopsie daisy, here's my next side, my plan for energy. It's insane.
And what would you do in this downtime, though, when you are waiting for either bill text or for some sort of
as a
proposal?
lobbyist or a staffer?
Back in the day as a staffer, what would you do around the Capitol? How would you kill time?
Cry. Like, you are just getting the shit beat out of you 24/7 during budget. Like, I really hope members understand that when you come up to a staffer, especially senior staff during this time, they are beaten down. During my time, me and my senior crew, we would buy ice cream cakes because that's the only thing you have to look forward to is to eat. So we would buy ice cream cakes, hence why we got a little chubby during budget time. We buy ice cream cakes because there's so much information coming at you. If there was something that you really didn't spend time on or you didn't really know or like educated yourself on really well, you would spend time. Like if I had free time, I was studying. I'd be like, call this team in. I don't really know this, because eventually there's a time where you got to like know the position, fight for the position. So if you had free time, you were eating.
Yeah.
Around this time, some people weren't going home. If you have free time, taking a shower, going home, maybe having dinner with your family for the first time. Like I wasn't married or I didn't have a family, so I was at work. But like there were a lot of people with families. Like if there was downtime, they were like, I'm going to actually eat dinner or put my child to bed.
Well, we've been speaking with Shontell Smith. She's a partner with Tusk Strategies.
The greatest.
And she's also the greatest.
I'm like probably one of your greatest. Like we should just think about doing a joint venture, making this like a partnership, because like at this point, the people want to hear me.
Do you feel like you're not out there enough?
Oh, baby. Big Mama's overexposed at this moment, as you know, because I have multiple jobs. But yes, I am overexposed. But still, we should think about this.
Well, we in public media, we're always looking for joint ventures in lieu of the actual money that we don't have.
Okay. What he's saying is, hey, if anybody wants to sponsor, how come you're not reading out the sponsorships?
I'm going to read them afterward.
How many do you have now?
We have 4 people who pay for the privilege, but we could use more.
You went down. You had more.
We did. We had 5 at one point as a result of a temporary one. But and come mid-April, we'll be looking for more as well.
This budget is still going, guys. So, if you want an ad or if you want us to say your name, well, David to say your name.
Yeah.
Give Big Papa some money.
Yeah, so if mental health advocates who are knocking outside my door right now want to advertise on dispatches for the right price, you can sponsor the Shontell Smith segment.
Oh. No. Let's just check with Jacob. I don't need no issues. Like, make sure, but yes.
We'll bring that up.
Do.
Well, thank you, Shontell. I appreciate it.
Bye.
And before we move on, I want to mention that today's program and all the Capitol Press Room content is brought to you by New York State United Teachers, the American Heart Association, National Fuel, and the New York State Association on Independent Living. And now we're going to turn to our conversation with Assemblymember Emily Gallagher, a Brooklyn Democrat who visited the studio on Wednesday to help shed some light on what life is like for rank-and-file members living in Albany during this purgatory time in the state budget process. So you're kind of an expert at this point in what to expect.
I know all the tricks.
Well, so one of the tricks that I wonder about is when the speaker says, pack for the weekend, do you always take him seriously? Or sometimes you go, no, speaker, I know we're not going to be here this weekend. I know we're going home as planned.
This is a really apropos question. I now have a strategy where I keep half of my wardrobe, my work clothes, here in my office. We have some pretty good closets in the offices here. So you just kind of have the clothes there in case you get into a situation where you're stuck here and you don't want to keep wearing the same outfit. Yeah, I know that, this is always ebbing and flowing. The situation is always changing, a very dynamic period of time. I tend to pack a little bit extra underwear, but beyond that, I really wait and see. We do the wait and see game because a couple years ago, I was staying in an apartment with a friend, and I decided to stay the weekend, and then nothing happened. And I learned about what a party location that apartment building was during the weekend. I was just kind of like bored. I wanted to be back in the district.
So is your approach now, fool me once, okay, that's on me, but, fool me twice, I won't be fooled again? I forget what the George Bush quote is.
Yeah, I know.
Because I was speaking with a member who's now in his second budget, and he purposefully didn't plan anything for this upcoming weekend, which I believe is his birthday weekend, because he's like, I'm going to be busy passing a budget. I kind of laughed at him when he brought this up. I imagine you're not making the same mistakes. You probably kept, whatever plans you had for the 5th and 6th.
You really see a lot of people suffer through the years planning vacations and then canceling them and then finding out that they probably could have gone.
Mm-hmm.
So basically just from mid-March to the end of April, we tell everybody that I may be able to come, I may not be able to come. And it's like keeping a real kind of casual vibe with the local events so that people aren't disappointed if you cancel, but also, they can set a place for you at the table.
At the same time, though, is it kind of nice to have this excuse? You can say, oh, sorry, I've got budget, I can't make it, or we've got conference, even if maybe there's not that much going on. Because I had one member, a staffer, I should say, said, oh, no, the person can't do an interview because they've got budget and conference. And this was a freshman member, and I kind of just laughed at the idea that, oh, Carl must have them on speakerphone just constantly looking for their advice and stuff. So do you use this at all to get out of things?
I'm trying to think if it's wise for me to reveal this aspect of my own strategy.
Mm-hmm.
It is kind of nice. You also learn like the things to do around town. Sometimes you're just kind of like on hold.
Yeah, what do you like to do in Albany? Because some people have gone as far as Western Massachusetts to the outlets when there was time to kill. What do you like to do?
I was actually invited to do that this year.
Okay.
I like to sing karaoke sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Do you have a favorite spot?
Yeah, I like to go to the War Room and sing karaoke there. And I like to go to the mall. The mall is, there's something about the Crossgates Mall that really scratches this 90s girl itch in me. Like they have an Orange Julius there. They have Auntie Anne's. They have all of the things that I remember from my youth. So getting an Orange Julius, you can't even get that in, the mall that I grew up near. And there's a lot of the malls are getting closed, they don't exist anymore. So this is really like a cultural experience that I want to make sure that everybody has, especially, younger legislators who might not have had the mall culture that I grew up in.
It's nice that you can pass that along to them.
It's really nice. It's really important. Historic preservation has always been very important to me, and I think having a mall that actually has like the mall stores in it, that's important. Because a lot of the malls now, they have like weird stores. They don't have the normal kind of fare. You need the Gap. You need, as I mentioned, and I'm hoping that I say this enough, I become an influencer for Orange Julius. Orange Julius is really important to me. The food court, Marcella and I the other day, we went and ate in the food court. Panda Express is there. The most important mall stores are in the Crossgates Mall. And, I'm looking forward to when they update that pet store to have the rescue animals like the law says. Maybe they already have. I haven't checked.
Something to do. But what about in the building itself? Because we've seen members throw balls around in the hallway. There have been rubber band fights in the actual chamber when things are particularly slow as they're waiting for bills. Is there anything you like to do in the Capitol complex?
Yeah, I like to go for long walks to the floors that I'm not usually privy to, like the 5th floor.
Yeah.
And just kind of go through there. There's some really strange staircases up there. Try to get a little lost and find your way back, because the more different ways you get lost, the more ways you find yourself. I also like to, in the evenings, like these kids come and they do like dance classes in the Capitol.
Yeah, over in the plaza.
Yeah, in the
Yep.
plaza. So that's kind of cool to see. Try to pick up some moves for TikTok, Like there's a lot to learn.
You're
over
crossing
there.
generations. You're a millennial who's also on TikTok, which is great to see that you're bridging these gaps.
I actually haven't contributed to the TikTok universe.
Well, you do in the sense that you probably consume them when they're on Instagram a few weeks later.
That's exactly what I do.
And I feel you there.
And that's why I need to see the kids doing it live so that I can know what's coming and I can predict to the other millennials, like, what's next.
Despite all of that going on, there also is the occasional briefing, budget briefings you have in conference. And at this point in the process, how much of the briefings are substantive in nature in the sense that it's the speaker saying, here's what we've got, or different issue area experts saying, here's what the governor's pitching, and how much of it is him coming back saying, yeah, we still haven't gotten this latest prison proposal from the governor, or there still aren't details on XYZ that the governor has talked about in the press?
The speaker does a great job of making sure that we are kept up to date with every new arrangement, new idea, new detail. And I really appreciate that. Like there is a dedication to keeping us in the loop. And then we each get 3 minutes to speak in conference and we discuss what our takes are on the update. And because there's so many of us, that really becomes hours of time. It's really interesting. There's some very good debates, and you definitely get to hear perspectives that you hadn't thought of. And I enjoy like that part of conference. I really do like learning about the other parts of the state and like what they're thinking about things. So not to get too sentimental here.
Well, but at this point, we were speaking on April 2nd. This is going to air on Friday, April 4th. Are you getting very substantive briefings? Because when we've talked with the speaker, he says, we haven't even begun talking about money, and we're still trying to resolve the governor's big issues. So I can't imagine that there's that much to actually brief you on at this point.
There's not, but like I said, you just give us 2 things, and with 100 people, 3 minutes each, that's a long time, And, we have snacks that are really great. Different people are known for their jokes. People are known for...
Who's particularly funny in conference?
Well, Fred Thiel is the legend. He was really funny in
Former
conference.
assemblyman from Long Island.
Yes. And so now there's a little bit of a competition to get that level of hilarity.
The conference jester?
That's right. The conference jester.
Do you want to give us any insight into who might be up for that role?
You know who's going for it very hard is Steve Otis.
Okay. Hudson Valley Democrat.
He really likes to create puns. And it's great when people have the level of talent to take true concerns, true takes on everything, and then put puns in that.
It's the highest form of comedy.
It is the highest form of comedy.
Satire is a poor man's game. Its puns are where it's at.
Yes.
Well, I'm curious if there's ever a shift in the vibe in conference when it's clear that we're about to get a budget. Is there a point where you kind of sense, okay, Carl's trying to bring this in for a landing and maybe fewer people are speaking, or there's more of an emphasis on, yes, this is what we've got as a deal, not like here's what's being discussed. Is there a vibe change at any point?
I think the vibe gets more intense during that time because you know that once we get there, there's no turning back. You know, it's the pencils down moment where you have to think about like what grade you're going to get on the test because it's over. So I think that's when people really start like going back and like, you know, erasing their Scantron and like being like, should I give up on this? Should I keep fighting for this? Like, what is my red line?
Well, clearly we're at a point in the game where the governor is still able to influence the budget. But what about rank and file members like yourself? Do you feel like, aside from those big ticket issue items where you can potentially say, no, I'm not moving on involuntary. No, I'm not moving on masks, whatever it is. Or yes, I am ready to move on this. Do you still feel like you can have input at this point? Or does that kind of ship sail with the one house budgets? If you haven't gotten into the one house budgets, is it impossible to inject something into the budget?
It's definitely harder. And I think that unless something's kind of already in play, it's really difficult to... You can't start something at this point. The governor can, but a rank and file member can't start something at this point. But there's always ways to kind of influence the conversation.
Well, you credited the speaker with giving you very meaningful briefings, but we will have lawmakers come up to myself and other reporters, and maybe they're just saying this in jest, but they'll say, "Oh, you know more about what's going on than I do," and if they're Republicans, I take them at their word. But I thought that was funny. But for those Democrats, is that actually the case for some of you? Is like the tweet from Bernadette Hogan or Nick Reisman going to be the first time you've heard about things if conference isn't scheduled till later that day? And if so, do people like stay tuned to the reporter Twitter for information drops? I know
that you want to hear that that's true. That
I have a good enough ego that you could tell me that's not true, and I'll still be okay with myself. I'm a straight cisgendered white male. We're doing okay.
Yeah, you guys are you're well known for being very comfortable and confident with.
My mom told me she loved me plenty growing up, so I'm good. Yeah.
Yeah. Congratulations.
Thanks.
So I would say the more. Sometimes we like to go to the reporters and stuff because, you know, we're getting bored and we want a little like spice, you know, like, is this true? Like rumors can be really exciting. But definitely like, you know, there's different people who have different access to different rooms, to different decision makers, to different staff members who might have different kinds of awareness of things. So sometimes you do get info from other people, and certainly, you know, it can be very frustrating when you're trying to keep something under wraps and then you look at your phone and it's already, you know, on Dave Lombardo's Twitter.
And now you're promoting my ego. There it goes. You did it for me anyway. Thank you.
You know, I've been socialized, unfortunately. I'm trying to fight it, but I've been socialized to try to help
We need
people
it.
like you feel good about themselves.
We need it in society. I appreciate that. The question that everyone is asking at this point in the process is, when is the budget going to be done? And before we get to that question, what do you say as the budget being done? Is it when we get that agreement announcement from the governor, even though there are still some pieces that need to be locked down? Is it when the final vote happens? Is it when ice cream is being served, or flavored ice in the other chamber? What is...
For me, budget is over when I am back in my apartment in Brooklyn.
Mm-hmm.
Until that time, I am still processing the stress, processing achievement or disappointment, feeling, you know, frustrated, or, you know, I'm still purging all of those emotions. And I think I've come to feel more acceptance about my role in the budget and what is in my control and what is not in my control. And that's really helped.
How does that level of acceptance impact the way you approach the budget? Because I imagine that sort of recognition means you might prioritize things differently or use your energy differently.
For me, as someone who was raised as an activist, it makes me fight as hard as possible because I know that that's all I can do. But for other people, it makes them say, I don't care.
But is there a realization, though, that, say, like we talked about, at this point, you're not going to get an increase in X, Y, and Z thing. So even though you might have this innate urge to push on something, the rational part of your brain says, that's a waste of your time, assembly member, and I'm going to focus on something else.
Yeah,
Orange
I think...
Julius.
Oh, yeah. The strawberry flavor,
I might have to treat myself after this.
I know. Now, you better bring me one, but that's probably not allowed.
I think if it's under $15 or whatever the nominal value is.
Who knows these days? The thing that I've learned the most in my time here in the assembly is that anything can happen at any time. And the rules are the rules as long as they're being followed. So there's still like little opportunities that present themselves, little holes in the sweater that you can tug on. There's options, but I think also you start thinking about, like, if I want this thing, what are some other strategies that I can take for next year? The thing that I found most difficult to adjust to Albany life is that Albany life is much slower than I anticipated. There is thinking about things in multiple year campaigns rather than everything gets done every year. And I think that was something that really frustrated me when I was new. And now that I'm here for all of 5 years, I understand now that sometimes the first year is like a learning year, and the second year is maybe a little bit more structured. The third year, and I'm talking about like on a campaign or of an idea, the third year you maybe have an idea of where you need to move the bill or how you need to move it, or if it's not going to work, should you quit that bill and work on a different bill? So, a lot of this stuff, you just gotta get the flow down. It's kind of like, like roller skating or riding a bike through a crowd of people. Like, how do I get around these different obstacles? And that might not be solved in 1 year. It might take you 20 or 30 years. You might have to hand it off to somebody else. Like, that's what I've learned about this place. And unfortunately, sometimes that is up against the knowledge that there is actual urgency to an issue getting resolved. And that can cause a great deal of cognitive dissonance and pain to know that people are suffering. With prison reform, we need to resolve this issue. How do we move it faster so that fewer people suffer? It's the great quagmire of our bureaucracy.
Well, on that sincere and heartfelt note, let's pivot back to the trivial for one last question, which is, when do you imagine yourself, and I'll let you look at a calendar, being back at home with the budget behind you? Here's April, and we're talking on April 2nd. This will again air on April 4th. So when do you see yourself back in your PJs just thinking about that budget that you finished?
I'm going to predict that it's shorter than last year, but it's still quite long. So I'm going to say maybe around the 24th.
Okay, and so that means you come back from the Easter break, or do you think it's going to interrupt Easter at all? Will the budget rise from the ashes on that Sunday, maybe?
Yeah. Which day is Easter? I don't
the
even...
20th.
Okay.
And Passover is the 12th for everyone else.
Yeah, I think we're going to go through the whole month. That's my guess.
Okay. Well, we've been speaking with Assemblymember Emily Gallagher. She is a Brooklyn Democrat and spokesperson for Orange Julius. Assemblymember, thank you so much for making the time.
Thank you very much.
And it was not good to see him, because I know people thinking like, I'm like, oh, I want to see Luigi. No, I'm not. I'm not saying like it was good to see him because I wanted to see him, but we haven't seen or heard much of Luigi.
He's been in prison, Shontell.